You know what I say?
What's that?
I say that big talk's worth doodly squat. Now, them poultices is laced with feather moss and mustard root. Mind you drop water on them occasional and keep them down.
It's obliged, Remy.
You can pay me when you see me again, Josie Wales.
Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, The Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, I'm going to be doing a bit of a Tiny D6 video. So let's start off with the fact that we're going to be diving into the Old West, folks, because actually, I have recently created and released on DriveThruRPG 4 supplements for Tiny Gunslingers. I'm going to talk a bit about these supplements, what the supplements have to offer, and give you some details about the supplements. And I will make sure that there's links in the video description that you can click and you can go check out these supplements for yourself if you'd like to download them. But let's dive on into the first one, and that is going to be the catalog. This is actually one of my favorite of the supplements I made for Tiny Gunslingers. This is probably my favorite supplement because it offers a lot of different things, advanced mechanics for firearms, as well as it also adds different types of weapons, such as the Bowie knife, different types of revolvers, and even the big dick Gatling gun. Yes, folks, the Gatling gun is even there, as well as actually some belt-fed machine guns, because when I created my Tiny Spies Tiny Gunslingers campaign, I set it up for pretty much a cap limit of 1870 or 1897. So the Gatling gun would still exist and actually still be in service at that times, and that is actually part of the catalog. Now, there's also other things in the catalog, such as camping and survival gear, and it also covers food and rations, and just general clothing. So it covers a lot of different things. There's literally got to be over 100 items within the catalog, as well as there's more advanced rules for firearms and even melee weapons itself. Because for some odd reason, the proficiencies in Tiny Gunslingers is a bit different than it is in the more modern Tiny D6 games. So there's a lot of different things there with different special rules. Some of the equipment has special rules, like, you know, the whip. I've introduced a whip to be used, and it's essentially one of those. It's like it's got a 10-foot reach, but it only does 1 point of damage, so it's not really a heavy weapon, even though it's got the reach of a heavy weapon, so on and so forth. So there's just a lot of different things there, equipment-wise and services even, that adds just more depth to Tiny Gunslingers. Now, the next one I want to talk about here is titled Country Roads. This is the second supplement for Tiny Gunslingers, and essentially what this adds is it adds much needed wagons and stagecoaches to Tiny Gunslingers. And I've also even included the dreaded war wagon. There's also armored stagecoaches and things of that nature, prison wagons. This is something that's just not part of Tiny Gunslingers, and it really should have been, in my opinion. So I've taken time and essentially created stats for different types of wagons and prices, so you can actually buy wagons now in Tiny Gunslingers. And, you know, how many horses does this type of wagon need? How many horses does that type of wagon need? Also, I've also added two traits that the characters can actually pick up too that are related to using wagons. Now, the next one is America the Beautiful. This is more of a source book that's more geared towards the game master. Although players can also benefit from this book as well. It's kind of a hybrid book here for both players and game masters. I would say it's more geared towards game masters because the game master is going to essentially make the final decisions on a lot of different things of how he wants to do things within his Tiny Gunslingers campaign. But essentially, this is going to help you take Tiny Gunslingers from being an adventure and just adding a lot more depth to it. And that's because it's got things. First off, it's got a historical kind of a rough timeline, historical timeline that outlines different things that happened during the Old West, as well as it talks about Jim Bowie's legendary knife, and it also talks about the Earps, the shootout at the OK Corral. It talks about the Cochise County Cowboys, things of that nature. It also introduces professions. I've actually outlined different professions and what each bonus you get from each individual profession is. So it's kind of a way system that I came up with to essentially concrete a part of the character creation. So this is kind of more geared towards the character, but also it also adds homesteading and fur trapping even to the Tiny Gunslingers system, because fur trapping was a way to make money. So maybe even though Tiny Gunslingers is more geared towards, you want to say like spaghetti westerns and bounty hunters, I kind of set this up to go with, well, does your players want to actually be fur trappers, or do they want to be prospectors? So there's a lot of different things that you can go with there. Maybe you want to set up a campaign that is more geared towards being soldiers. So it's there. And there's a lot there to take from inspiration to maybe set up different types of campaigns. I've also added information on what I do for creating my bounties, how to come up with the crimes, how to come up with the prices. Now, of course, the prices realistically, they fluctuate. It's more like just a guideline on creating prices for your bounties and essentially filling out the bounty information when you do your bounty posters and your bounty postings for your bounty hunters in your Tiny Gunslingers, not Tiny Spies, Tiny Gunslingers campaign. I've also added an adventure generator that you just roll dice. There's a couple different columns there. You roll dice a couple different times, and essentially it gives you keywords. And then with those keywords, it should hopefully inspire you, give you some ideas for what you can come up with for your Tiny Gunslingers game. Now, the last one I want to talk about here is Legends of the Old West, because one thing that Tiny Gunslingers does not provide whatsoever is NPCs. Now, the Legends of the Old West guide also adds animals, animal companions, wildlife, things of that nature. It's not really extremely well fleshed out. I've essentially put in a couple different types of animals that maybe the players would want to hunt, such as bear or mountain lion or wolves, if you want to do more fur trapping, as well as these could just be a threat to your players as they're traveling from one city to the next. And then NPC-wise, well, what's the game without NPCs? And of course, it's an Old West game, so you're going to have things like banditos, outlaws, gunslingers, soldiers, and of course, saloon girls. This also adds horses, which was another thing I felt was very, very sorely lacked with Tiny Gunslingers itself. There really is no rules for horses. So that was something that, in my opinion, needed corrected. It also adds a lot of other things, such as civilians, preachers, a lot of different NPCs that you can work with. So I would argue that actually, of probably all the supplements, this one is probably the absolute most vital, and it's going to be the most helpful for anyone. Now, with Legends of the Old West, it's made using my other supplements that I created for Tiny Gunslingers. But with that being said, you can probably get away with just this if you want to grab just this one. Now, that being said, they're all on DriveThruRPG as part of the Tiny Trove program. And to go get them, all you have to do is go over to DriveThruRPG. Now I have these set up as a you set your price type of deal. So I kind of set like a recommended price, which honestly I really didn't know what to set the prices at. I just kind of gauged by how much effort and time it took to create these 4 supplements. But honestly, you can get these 4 supplements for roughly the same price that would get you a printed soft cover version of Tiny Gunslingers. Roughly, it's roughly about the same. So if you already got Tiny Gunslingers, you can easily go and get these 4 books for cheap. And that was my goal, was to make them cheap so that way they were accessible to anyone, no matter what they could afford. Because, well, I just enjoy gaming, and I just would like to hear and see people just kind of enjoying this type of stuff to help them out, this kind of content, if you will. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed this information. You have a better idea of what these supplements provide. But if you have any questions, you can actually ask questions on the Drive-Thru RPG pages, or you can ask questions here on my YouTube channel. I do pay attention to comments. But anyway, folks, hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and hopefully you all enjoy the supplements I made for Tiny Gunslingers. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.